Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Jack McGuire. Well, we have just learned tonight that Democratic nominee Graham Platner has dropped out of the U.S. Senate race. His decision comes after Politico reported on Monday that a woman who had previously dated Platner alleged he sexually assaulted her nearly 5 years ago, an allegation he denies. 41-year-old Jenny Rassicott of Maine said in late 2021, Platner came to her home uninvited, intoxicated, and forced her to have sex despite her repeatedly telling him to stop. On Tuesday, Lindsay Fifield, one of Platner's ex-girlfriends who alleged violent behavior in a New York Times article released more than a month ago, came forward to add to her story, saying Platner removed condoms during sex without her knowledge. Platner denied all of these accusations as well. In light of the new allegations, a lot of prominent Democrats who once supported Platner in his campaign dropped their endorsements. Platner put out an 11-minute video tonight on social media. Here's a little of what he had to say.
We banded together. We did it the way that we were told we are supposed to make change. And we won. And now they are not going to let us have it. Not if it's me. And so we're suspending campaign operations. I want to make clear, though, I intend to file my paperwork to withdraw. The process needs to assure that what comes next is reflective of the Mainers who on June 9th turned out and showed that they are desperate for a different kind of politics. It needs to be driven not from back rooms, but by the will of the people. And the decisions that come next must come from that.
The Maine Democratic State Committee voted tonight to move forward with plans for a roughly 600-person nominating convention to choose a replacement for Platner. We're told the vote was 65-14. Under the plan approved by the committee, anyone seeking to be considered as a replacement candidate would be required to file a declaration of candidacy with the party and submit 200 signatures. The Maine Democratic Party releasing this statement tonight. There's an unprecedented amount of energy and enthusiasm among Maine Democrats, driven in part by many of the dedicated volunteers and supporters who were inspired by Graham Platner's campaign. We look forward to coming together and harnessing that energy around our new nominee. The Republican National Committee releasing a statement regarding the end of Platner's Senate bid, saying in part, quote, every Democrat that endorsed Graham Platner endorsed a rapist, and every Democrat that stayed silent was complicit. Democrats rolled in the mud with Platner, and now they are completely stained by their association with this sick monster, end quote. Former Maine Senate President Troy Jackson announcing his run for U.S. Senate after Platner suspended his campaign, saying, quote, there's a powerful movement of working-class people in the state of Maine and millions more across America who are ready to send a progressive fighter to the Senate. I'm in, and we're going to defeat Susan Collins. Maine deserves a senator that will fight for working families. Democrat Dan Kleben, a co-founder of Maine Beer Company, announced that he is jumping into the race to replace Platner as well, all while running on the same political principles.
And I hope to carry forward Graham's message. There is no doubt that Graham tapped into something very real. People are rightfully pissed off because the system is rigged against them. They work hard, they play by the rules, and they still can't make ends meet. They can't afford their mortgage payment or their rent. They can't put groceries on the table. They can't afford education. And so I do feel for Graham, and I hope that I can do right by his supporters.
Meanwhile, Platner is encouraging State Representative Valley Geiger of Rockland, along with other candidates, to run for Senate. That's according to our media partner, WMTW, who spoke with Geiger. Geiger told them, quote, he said, Valley, you are a fighter. You have been with this movement since the beginning. Geiger says she is heartbroken by the allegations against Platner, but says he can't run for the Senate. Maine Democrats now have until July 27th to select their new nominee, who will take on Collins in the November election.